Hi, I'm Patrick Hendry. I wanted to talk a little bit today about monitoring physical health and self-management, really, more than just monitoring, the importance of self-management for people with psychiatric disorders. We all know from recent studies that people with serious mental illness have a much shortened life expectancy, as much as 25 years younger than the average population. And this is due to a lot of different factors, higher rates of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, respiratory disease, and infectious disease, higher rates of smoking, substance abuse, and obesity, and an increased vulnerability due to poverty, social isolation, trauma, and incarceration. A lot of these higher rates of disease are caused by some of the effects of the medications that we take. All of us need to monitor our physical health, and we usually do to some degree or not. Whether it's just getting a yearly checkup or checking our blood pressure, our cholesterol, triglycerides, blood sugar, waist circumference, it all needs to be done on a regular basis. And it's particularly important for people with psychiatric disorders and taking psychiatric meds. Because of the reduced lifespan, we have to really actively work to maintain our health. The conditions these conditions that we're subject to are often attributed to lack of exercise, which is often a side effect of medication, poor diets, which has a lot to do with the poverty that many people find themselves in, smoking, which is a coping mechanism for many people, and long-term medication side effects. But living a healthy life is a very important part of overall recovery. So taking responsibility for yourself to proactively monitor your health breaks the chain of what we call learned helplessness. So many of us, and I'm a peer myself, so many of us, when we are diagnosed and we first go into treatment, all of the decision-making is taken away from us. People tell us, what medications to take and what classes to go to, and sometimes they control where we live and when we eat and what we can do. Many times our rights are taken away if we're hospitalized, either voluntarily or not. So that creates a feeling of turning over responsibility for yourself to somebody else. And it's very easy to get used to that, and particularly for people who've been hospitalized for long periods of time during their life. When it happens when people have very few opportunities to control their lives. So it's very important that, one, on the treatment side, that people are given respect and dignity and the rights to make personal choice. And two, on our side, it's very important that we maintain the desire to control our own lives instead of giving it up to somebody else. There's a lot of reasons why it's important to monitor physical health, some of which we talked about. As I said, many of the medications have significant side effects, and so this can cause weight gain, can cause lack of energy, can cause people to feel just like lack of desire to do anything. Many meds can contribute to vital organ problems, such as damage to the liver or kidneys if they're not closely monitored. A lot of the medications we take require frequent blood monitoring. And then again, another one of the things that's very important, and we see this more and learn more about this every day, is just how damaging smoking is to people. So we often talk in the medical field, we talk about the need for interventions to provide people with the information they need and to set up programs for them. But who's the best person to actually know how you feel? It's you. And so let's talk about self-interventions or self-management. One of the real key assets for achieving self-management is peer support. Now, over the last 25 years, we have discovered more and more that peer support is an incredibly important part of recovery for most people. Peer support helps us on many levels. One, we're talking to other people who have shared experience. They've shared similar experiences to our own in dealing with our disorders and the things that go on in our life because of it. So peer supporters can help people to learn the process of shared decision making, which is where you work in partnership with your provider, your caregiver, to make decisions together. Because your doctor may be an expert on medication and treatment, but you're an expert on yourself and what works and what doesn't. Another key tool for peers to use is something called motivational interviewing. And this is used to help people to find out what it is that they want to change in their life, and then what's going to give them the incentive to actually make those changes. And so we call those activation skills. One is setting meaningful goals. So once you decide what your goal is, say your goal is that you want to lose weight, then you have to look a little more closely. Why do you want to lose weight? And you have to keep looking at it until you find the importance that's actually going to make you make major changes in your life. I mean, all of us at some time in our life had said we want to lose weight. And very often we fail. Or very often we lose weight and gain it right back again. So we don't make lasting changes in our life. And it's because there's not something very core driving it. Once and it may be, for instance, in losing weight, it may be that you want to be around for a longer period of time to spend with your children as they grow up. It can be as simple as that. Once you've decided on your goals, then you want to develop an achievable action plan. So you work out actual steps to how you're going to achieve that goal. So for instance, if weight loss is your goal, and weight loss is going to help control diabetes and it's going to help prolong your life, then some of the steps might be to change your diet, to increase your activity, to actually start a formal exercise routine. A lot of us have done that. I mean, how many people have a New Year's resolution to work out, to do sit-ups, I'm going to run every day, and then we do it for a week and we stop? Very often it's because we set the goals too high. We think we're going to go out and we're going to run a mile the first week, or we think we're going to go to the gym 4 times a week. In reality, we have to set it at something that we can actually achieve. So it's better to start small. So you may want to say that you're going to work out 1 time the first week just to get used to the gym, and then 2 times in the second week and third week, and then increase over time to 3 times and maybe even 4 times, 3 times being a good level. Once you've developed that plan of what you're going to do, I'm going to come home from my activities during the day and I'm going to walk around the block. And the next day, I'm going to walk around the block twice. And eventually, I'm going to build up to running around the block. And then hopefully at some point, I end up running the amount that I wish that I could do. So what you have to do is set these goals in a way that builds confidence. And it's really good to kind of take a confidence scale for yourself. When you set a goal, look at it and think on terms of a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being the least confident and 10 being the most confident. How confident are you that you can achieve that action plan that you've set? And if it's not 7 or higher, then you need to change the plan. So for instance, it may be walking less or less frequently. It may be making smaller changes to your diet. It may be going to the gym less times. Any number of ways that you can increase the confidence that you're actually going to achieve it. Because achieving little goals helps build confidence that you can achieve bigger goals. And success is the biggest impetus to people making change in their life. Another thing that's really helpful is to have peer support when you're doing it. Now, it can be a friend, it can be a husband, wife, brother, sister, or it can be formal peer support. But somebody that you can go back to and talk about, my goal for this week was that I was going to walk around the block 1 time and then 2 times and then 3 times, and I achieved it. or I had problems doing it 3 times, or I only did it twice this week. And you talk it over with people. How can I increase these outcomes? How can I make myself feel more confident? Shared experience helps people to identify meaningful goals and bring about change, and that's why peer support is so important. In order to effectively change the way people manage their whole health, one of the things we have to do, like I said, is examine your motivation to change. And it has to, again, be something that's very important to you. It's not just as simple as losing weight to fit into a pair of pants. It's usually something much more important in your life. Identify overcoming goals that need to be overcome. So that need to overcome resistance. So for instance, if you say your goal is to, lose weight and your goal is to lose 10 pounds over a period of time, it may be that the resistance to change is, again, that you're trying to do it too quickly, or that it's very difficult for you to change your diet because of your financial situation and you're not able to buy healthy foods, in which case you may have to do some additional problem solving about how you can obtain healthy foods to make meaningful changes. Once you've done all of that is when you set a clear path to goal achievement. And that's, like I said, an action plan. And it's really good if you just write this out simply, like week 1, day 1, going to walk around the block 1 time. Day 2, walk around the block 1 time. And then go through your week and have an overall weekly goal and monitor yourself on a weekly basis and get input from your peers as much as possible. And like I said, adjust those plans to set a high confidence level. And if you can attend peer support groups, which are really good places to talk about what you're working on and how successful or what problems you're having. By giving people tools to support these components, we help people to activate self-management. Once you start setting these plans and achieving these plans, you've begun to self-manage your health. Achieving successful goals raises our confidence to let us move on to bigger goals. And sharing of our experiences in support groups gives us reinforcement, and it also gives us new knowledge, because you can say, well, I had trouble that first week in walking, and my feet hurt and my shoes didn't seem to be good, so I got blisters. And somebody else in the group say, I was trying to do that too, and here's what I did. And I found that, if I wear an extra pair of socks, it helps out. Any kind of extra knowledge that you can build come from other people is helpful in trying to self-manage. One of the biggest things that we have to do in self-management is dealing with stress. We can all learn to go to the doctor for checkups. We can all set up action plans and try to work towards achievement. But one of the things that overcomes a lot of our best efforts are the effects of stress. Stress is every place. 60 to 80% of healthcare visits are related to stress. Learning to manage stress and reduce it is essential to recovery. Because when we experience intense stress, our bodies convert it into cellular stress. And when that happens, our normal immunities to disease are compromised, physically, mentally, or both. When we know that trauma, which is the epitome of stress, and especially childhood trauma, is often the trigger for mental illness and ill health. And so learning to deal with trauma and the stress that it creates is incredibly important. There's 3 major components to understanding stress and learning how to manage it. The first is the effects that stress have on the metabolism. Metabolism is the body's chemical process of breaking down food to produce energy. The other is stressors. That's the events that communicate the possibility of danger to our brain. So for many of us who've experienced trauma in our life, there may be certain triggers that make us feel very stressed, very apprehensive, and we move into what we call the stress response, or fight or flight. We either want to jump in and take over and do something about the problem right away, and it's a physical response and your body starts producing adrenaline, or we want to run away and get away from that source of stress as quickly as possible. When you go into the stress response, a whole bunch of things happen to your body. Your metabolism increases, your breathing speeds up, your heart beats faster, blood pressure increases, blood vessels constrict, and then stress hormones like cortisol increase. And cortisol can be very damaging to the body and inhibits your immune system. The mind reacts with fear and hypervigilance. And so we feel very tense. We're aware of everything around us. We react to sound. We react to changes in the tones of voices. We become very reactive instead of taking action. If it continues over a long period of time, our overall health is affected, and it can be affected dramatically, and it's especially true for people living with psychiatric disorders. And your symptoms from your psychiatric disorder can be brought out by stress. In fact, that's probably the leading reason why most of us have reoccurring symptoms over a period of time, because most of us have symptoms for periods of time, and then we have periods of time when everything seems to be okay. And that's usually when our life is in balance and we've reduced the stress or we've learned ways to deal with the stress. One of the first steps in mental health recovery is to find ways to reduce stress. So if you can't change the environment in which you live, then you need to find ways to manage the effects of the stress. The first thing to do is to kind of try to take back control of your life and try and live your life in a balanced way that reduces the opportunities for stressors to occur. But if you can't change that, then you want to find ways to manage stress when it does occur. One of the techniques that has been discovered over a period of time, and it works especially well for people in the mental health field, is what we call the relaxation response. A doctor, cardiologist, was experiencing that when his patients came into his office, their blood pressure went up. So they may have been monitoring their blood pressure at home and it was doing fairly well, but when they showed up for their office visits, their blood pressure went up. He was wondering why that was. And he started thinking, well, it's the stress of being at a doctor's office. So what can we do about it? He started investigating ways to reduce stress. And everything he looked at kept bringing him back to certain things. And that's that meditation is probably the best stress reducer of all things. Because with meditation, you can control almost all of the things that happen to you when stress affects your body. So you can decrease your metabolism. You can slow your breathing down. Your heartbeat slows. Blood pressure decreases. Stress hormones decrease. And you have a feeling of calm and relaxation, which replaces the fear and hypertension that you felt before. The relaxation response is a form of meditation, and there's many ways to learn to practice meditation. A lot of us when we hear people talk about meditating, we think, well, I've tried that, and I never could do it, and it didn't work for me. It doesn't need to be as complicated as some of the types of meditation that we learn about. Meditation in its most simple form is a series of just three things. One is a repetition of a word, sound, or phrase, or a physical activity. So this could be just as simple as thinking the word in when you breathe in and out when you breathe out. And then you do this in a way to slow your breathing. So you say in, out. Now, eventually your mind starts to wander and you start thinking about, oh, I've got to fix dinner. The kids are coming home from school. What am I doing tomorrow? My check hasn't come yet. All of the normal things of real life start to interfere again. And this is normal. It happens to everybody. All you do is just return to repeating your phrase. And you just repeat it louder in your head. You can even say it out loud if you want. So you just go back to in and out and try and focus on just those words. So it's a process of repeat and return. Recovery itself is achieved through a whole series of small changes in our reaction to the world around us. So we know that, while recovery is different for each one of us, we have things in common about it. And stress is one of the biggest things that we all experience during our lifetime. Other things are things like finances and where we live and the type of care we receive and whether or not we have friends and family to support us or peer support of some type. But all of these are stress producers. So if you can't control those things right away, you can learn to deal with stress through the use of the relaxation response. Monitoring physical health is incredibly important because there is no health without mental health. When our minds are healthy, our physical health is improved. And when our physical health is improved, our mental health is improved. For many years, we separated the two areas of physical and mental health as if there was no connection between the two. When the statistics on early mortality for people with serious mental illness came out, it was very clear that there is a connection, but we didn't know exactly what it was. And so we started to look at it very carefully to see what it is. And what we know is that when our mental health is off and we're under stress and we're undergoing all of the other things that happen in our life when our symptoms are bad, then we have very few opportunities for our body to heal itself or to eat healthily or to get the amount of sleep we need. There's a definite connection between mind and body. Living with our illnesses is a fact of life for millions of people in America and around the world. And as I said, the road to recovery is different for each one of us. There's no one factor that will produce recovery. It's a whole series of very, very small steps. Each of us have different steps because our experiences are different. And part of recovery is recovering the things that we've lost in our life, putting back together our life, regaining our confidence in ourselves and our sense of self-esteem, rebuilding friendships and connections to family, finding a way to live in a place where we feel safe, having enough financial control to be able to have a good diet in the things that you need in your day-to-day life, perhaps going back to school or eventually returning to work. All of these things can be steps towards recovery. Just remember all the time that it takes self-management to really make sure that your health is good. Without self-management, even going to the doctor is not going to make the type of changes that you want or need. Recovery includes wellness. The University of South Florida has a really good book out called the Monitoring Physical Health and Side Effects of Psychotherapeutic Medications for Adults and Children. And it's available for free at if you contact Sabrina at the email address on the screen, and they'll be happy to send you a copy of it. I think you can also download it and Sabrina can give you that information. Thank you very much.